Morning, everyone. My name is Marc Sheinkin, and I'm the Senior Director of Member and Guest Communications at Marriott International. And it's a pleasure to be speaking with you today about some of the work that we've been doing in the luxury space in the last several months to really try to enhance our email marketing for our luxury brands. Uh, as I mentioned, I lead member and guest communications for Marriott. I've been with Marriott for about 11 years. We're based in Bethesda, Maryland. And as many of you probably are aware, hopefully some of you are members of the Marriott Bonvoy loyalty program. We've got about 170 million members of the program, about 7,500 hotels worldwide in 30 brands. And obviously the last couple of years have been interesting times for the hospitality industry, but we're certainly seeing the light at the end of the tunnel here, and it's exciting just to know that people like yourselves are getting together in hotels and meeting face to face. What we really need to see in our industry is more of these kinds of events. Conferences where people get together in person. Decently large gatherings. Once that we see that sort of business and group travel coming back, I think we'll really know that the industry is back on safe footing. But anyway, my email program that we manage at Marriott is obviously it's a fairly large one. We're sending about 2.6 billion emails this year to Marriott Bonvoy members and non-member guests. And we're doing it in, obviously, like many of your email programs, multiple languages, tons and tons of dynamic content, personalization, lots and lots of data to help us with this process. And what I'm going to talk about today is sort of a specific challenge that we faced with our luxury brands. One of the things about Marriott that I mentioned is obviously we have 30 brands. That's a lot of hotel brands spanning all aspects of the hospitality industry. So we have everything down in the land of Town Place Suites and Fairfield Inn that you might find by the side of the highway somewhere, all the way up to brands like the Ritz-Carlton and St. Regis. And one of the challenges that we were facing is that these luxury brands that are shown here on the screen, these 8 brands, really wanted our marketers really wanted these brands to stand out in sort of in a unique and special way, in a way that conveys that they are sort of different. But at the same time, most of our marketing and most of our infrastructure is based around all 30 brands being together. One of the first things that I learned when I came to Marriott is that because I've always worked in the loyalty program, was previously Marriott Rewards and the Ritz-Carlton Rewards and Starwood Preferred Guest, and that is now Marriott Bonvoy. One of the things that we had always preached in the loyalty space was that we were brand agnostic. We really don't care where people stay. We just want people to stay. And we don't have a model like, say, GM, where GM's trying to get somebody from, a Chevy to a Buick to a Cadillac. I'm not trying to get somebody from a Courtyard to a Renaissance to a Ritz-Carlton. I just want them to stay. But the challenge is that these brands do still then live in the same ecosystem with other brands that are obviously at a different service level and a different. One of my first jobs at Marriott was with the Ritz-Carlton Rewards. And that, if you're not familiar with it, it was a loyalty program that existed obviously just for the Ritz-Carlton, but under the covers, it was exactly the same as Marriott Rewards. So the structure and the nuts and bolts of the program were the same, but it was branded Ritz-Carlton. And the whole communications experience was more bespoke and purposeful and curated as is befitting a brand like the Ritz-Carlton. And so when Ritz-Carlton Rewards went away, when we launched Marriott Bonvoy, what we realized is that everything was kind of coming together in the same way for all members. And I think what we've decided is that we really need to elevate the experience for certain guests who prefer luxury. And I've always said that I see the email inbox as an extension of the guest experience, that what I do in the email channel really should be no different than a one-to-one conversation you might have with a front desk associate when you're checking into a hotel. In fact, I would say in the email channel, I have way more data available to me as a marketer than a front desk associate might have about you when you're checking into the property. And so I really ought to be able to make our emails as personalized and bespoke as we want them to be. And doing so in the email inbox just extends that guest experience. So whoever we think we're going to treat our guests within our properties, we should be doing that in the inbox too. So there were 3 major steps to this process for us. The first and probably the most difficult was to figure out who our luxury guests were. And I'll talk more about this later, but the real challenge there is that people do mix and match their stays. And so, when we looked inside the data, we had to figure out who really preferred luxury, knowing that people stay at different brands all the time. Then curating the marketing so that the marketing that would reach this audience segment would feel more purposeful and bespoke. And then finally, sort of just elevating the whole experience within those emails that are reaching that guest, and then beyond the email channel in our other digital channels as well. So the problem that we were facing is that, as I mentioned earlier, everybody in Marriott Bonvoy was, and even in our non-member programs, our non-member guests were funneling through the same kinds of processes in order to search for a hotel, book, and then in the pre-arrival phase. And so what we ended up having here was, for our luxury guests, and especially for our ultra luxury guests, it was creating sort of an irrelevant experience for them. I mean, so just, I know that this isn't true for most of us, but we have some guests who are literally showing up at hotels in their Learjet, and they're spending $2,000 a night for a hotel. They're being greeted at the property by a butler where everything is being handled for them. I'm speaking of a brand like Ritz-Carlton Reserve, which is like a very special collection of a few hotels within the Ritz-Carlton brand that are completely unique and upgraded. And so imagine you're having this experience, and then meanwhile, you're still getting a very basic reservation experience. You're getting a very basic pre-arrival experience. It just doesn't fit. And so, I think that, once we kind of saw that was what the experience was for some of our luxury and ultra luxury guests, we just realized that this wasn't quite right for guests of these kinds of brands, and that this was an opportunity for us to avoid sort of diluting what our brands are about. So the purpose behind all of this was really just to bring this whole thing up a notch and to really foster that deeper connection to our brands and to the Bonvoy loyalty program. Obviously at the end of the day, we always say in the hotel business, we want to put heads in beds. That's great. But that starts by creating this emotional connection with our brands and Bonvoy. And email is probably the most impactful way for us to do that right now. So our first challenge was to determine who the luxury customer is. And the problem is that we have many guests who kind of mix and match their stays amongst many brands. And this can happen for a variety of reasons. Even if you're somebody who generally prefers luxury, sometimes you don't have a choice about where to stay because the event is taking place at a hotel that is potentially outside of your brand preference. You might be going to your cousin's wedding, and the wedding is at a courtyard, and that's where everybody is staying. You may work for a company that has rules about what brands can use when you're traveling for business travel. You may be at a conference like the one you're at right now, where the conference is at Stein Eriksen, and so that's where you're staying. Stein Eriksen, of course, happens to be a fabulous luxury property, but that might look different for particular individuals. And then there are some guests who, especially some of our loyalty program members, who save up those points. They make a lot of stays at sort of our regular premium brands or other brands, and then they save up those points from those stays, and then they try to cash in for that great luxury stay at one of our luxury brands. So we have some people who prefer luxury, but only stay with our luxury brands when they have enough points to do so. I kind of think of myself as a kind of a, somewhere in this kind of like second or third group. I love to stay at our luxury brands when I can, but I'm not, certainly at that income level. So I try to stay at luxury brands when I can, and especially when I have enough points to do so. But I also mix and match my stays. For example, when we're traveling with my son, we typically like to stay at a Residence Inn. Residence Inn is a great brand if you're staying with your children. But if it's just me and my wife, maybe we'll stay at a Ritz-Carlton. So the trip purpose is going to make this challenging. So when we really mined in the data to find our luxury preferers, we really had to break it into these groups And it turned out that we had sizable audiences in each one of these groups, so that we were able to think about them differently. The next phase was to really look carefully at our messaging. Uh, Obviously, for our luxury brand marketing, we wanted to showcase our best luxury hotels, but also this is really a place where photography makes a huge difference. Pictures worth 1,000 words, and some of our hotels are fabulous and they are in stunning locations, and we should let the pictures tell that story. So, obviously, the focus of these communications was going to be on those brands and those destinations, and really letting the photography do the work. The tone of voice definitely changed too. If you're familiar with some of our sort of standard marketing, you might see call to action buttons that say things like "Let's go" or "Book now," and we felt pretty strongly that that's kind of not the right tone of voice for a luxury guest. We wanted to make it a little bit more considered and focus more on the experience. Additionally, the proof points that we would be focusing on tended to be more things around like F&B, food and beverage, that is, food and beverage, culinary experiences, or those real money can't buy experiences that you get at our hotels. Again, one of the things about our luxury brands is that, yes, the hotels themselves are beautiful. Yes, the amenities are fabulous and the locations are great. But really what you're paying for when you stay at one of our luxury brands is the service and the experience. And so driving that point home in our marketing was a key element of this. And the other thing too is that we really wanted to sort of wind or turn away from some of our more standard proof points. Like very often within Marriott Bonvoy, we would talk about standard member benefits like free Wi-Fi or getting points or getting nights. What we've generally found is that some of those standard loyalty program proof points don't generate a lot of emotion for a luxury guest. Frankly, some of these people don't need points or nights. They're more interested in other aspects of the experience at a luxury brand. So we tried to sort of steer away from some of our standard messaging and more into these types of experiences. And then finally, there was an effort to kind of look at a slightly modified layout. And I'll show you what some examples of what that looked like, just to sort of elevate the whole experience in the inbox. So we definitely took some time to take our standard communications and rebrand them to look a little bit different. So over here on the left side, you'll see what our communication looked like previously. This is a welcome message, inviting someone, or actually when someone joined the Marriott Bonvoy program, this is the email they would receive. And so there's nothing wrong with the way this email looks and what it's driving here, especially for most of our members. But you'll see, like, even on the right side, the proof points are things about like free nights and exclusive rates and free Wi-Fi. It's like not quite right for the luxury audience. So the luxury version of this email is sort of similar in what it's trying to drive home, but you'll see, of course, obviously the photography is really the hero here, trying to make the photo tell the story. The language is a little bit different. It's more about like discovering and exploring, not necessarily about like booking right now. And also sort of on the bottom right, you see exceeding expectations with certain privileges. Again, the loyalty program is still the loyalty program. You're still getting the same thing. But I think we just tried to talk about it in a different way, in a more elevated way. And then the same was true on some of our more standard loyalty lifecycle emails. So this is an email that we would send when someone achieves platinum status. Again, there's not much else I can say to somebody about achieving a status level, but when you see the luxury version on the right side of the screen, you see, first of all, like from a template perspective, we tried obviously different fonts. It's a little bit more white. We wanted the template to have more breathing room and just to have the whole thing just kind of feel less in your face. The fonts on the left side on the standard version used a lot of all caps headlines. We moved away from that. It's sentence case on the right side. And again, the messaging is pretty much the same. It still says, "Congratulations, you've reached Platinum Elite." And it's not like we can say something tremendously different to a luxury guest about what status level means. But again, we just try to use just slightly modified and elevated language and again, sort of different types of photography to drive those proof points home. The other thing, and probably I would say probably one of the most important aspects of this was also just thinking about what's in the inbox for a standard communication flow versus what we would do for a luxury guest. The truth of the matter is that in our standard lifecycle marketing, we tend to repeat some of the loyalty proof points over and over again. And some of those loyalty proof points, as I've mentioned, just don't really speak to the aspirations of a luxury customer. So, this is an example of the kinds of emails that we would typically send to a standard guest or a member of Marriott Bonvoy. Throughout their life cycle, they'll get monthly recurring emails about their account. They'll be informed about their global promotions. There are discount programs. There are things that are happening within their loyalty life cycle, like achieving a level. Maybe you get a message on your birthday. And maybe we're trying to drive home some of our experiential programming like Marriott Bonvoy Moments. But within the luxury space, what we really tried to do is to sort of dial that whole thing down. And so actually there was an effort to suppress certain campaigns from this audience, to actually exclude them from the standard communication flow. So like on the right side, you see what a sort of our typical monthly email launch calendar looks like. And there's a lot going on now. Obviously, not everybody is getting all of these emails. We're not sending people 3-4 emails a day, but we are deploying something and almost every single day. And most members are getting, an email or 2 or sometimes 3 a week. But on the bottom right, you see what the calendar looks like for the luxury guest. And we've eliminated a whole lot of stuff here just to make the whole communications flow feel more bespoke, more curated, and more purposeful. So maybe they're getting an email or 2 a week, depending on kind of where they are in their loyalty life cycle, depending on the kinds of stays that they're making. If they're making frequent stays, they're still going to get all the emails that are associated with a reservation. So the confirmation email, the pre-arrival email, the mobile check-in email, they're still going to get all of these associated with every single stay they're making. So when we made our marketing choices, we really tried to just dial it down to just the messages that we felt would be most relevant to a luxury consumer. And then specifically within those emails themselves, we really wanted the content strategy to amplify things like destinations, new hotels. New hotels are always very interesting to our luxury guests. Exclusive packages. I mentioned earlier culinary, food and beverage. That's a very key proof point at our luxury hotels, and also social media and what we're doing in that space. We talked earlier about the creative and the sort of luxury look and feel. Volume. So like you can see here that not only did we dial down just the general volume of messaging, but we avoided campaigns that have waves of communication. So we certainly have certain campaigns where we'll send an email, and then if no action is taken, we'll send a reminder. And if no action, or then depending on if action is taken, we might then send sort of a retargeting communication. We pulled this audience out of those. The other thing too is that we looked at whether perhaps email was just not the right channel to deliver this message. Obviously, if we have a guest engaged in our mobile app, then this kind of messaging can be pushed through in the app, and an email is really not necessary in that case. And actually, it ends up being either sort of redundant or potentially even outdated if you're getting real-time information in our mobile app. And then finally, we also wanted to look carefully at the audiences for our campaigns to understand with our internal stakeholders how critical the luxury audience is to a particular message. We have obviously the luxury audience is probably one that most of our marketers at Marriott want to reach, because that's an audience that probably has disposable income and is probably interested in spending money. But we really wanted to sort of pressure test that assumption with some of our marketing campaigns and really to say to marketers within the company, do you really need the luxury audience for this one, or can we pull them out of this and allow the campaign to go to other members? And this was probably the most difficult and the most challenging point of this whole thing, was that we had to get our internal colleagues to buy into this. So there are scenarios where we have campaigns going out that would have gone to this big an audience and now is going to this big an audience. We've pulled the luxury guests out of those campaign types, and that was sort of a a difficult conversation to have with some of our internal stakeholders to get them to buy into this as a strategy and to say, yeah, I'm gonna allow my business, whatever it might be at Marriott, to sort of sit on the sideline or not necessarily have access to the luxury guest, um, because there's going to be scenarios where there are, I mean, I suppose winners and losers, and there are some campaign types that are going to get the luxury guest, and there are some that aren't. And we believe that in the long run, this is going to be for the greater good of the company and also specifically of our luxury brands. And so, how's it going? Well, we've really only just started putting this in market a few months ago. So the early returns, though encouraging, are still just that, early returns. But on this page, you can see on the left screenshot is what the email used to look like. This is our monthly account update. This is an email that we send every month to all Bonvoy members with generally an account update. And it's sort of like a newsletter about the program. So in the old template, the open rate and the click to open rate were decent. We moved to a new template, reflecting the new Marriott Bonvoy brand late in the summer, and that certainly increased some of our performance numbers. But then when we did the luxury version and we did something very special and unique just for our luxury members, the open rate went through the roof, and as did the click to open rate. And in addition, we were seeing the revenue numbers bear out this strategy, which is that the luxury version was driving more bookings at our luxury brands, which of course is the whole point here. We really want people to feel like this is relevant content to them and to engage with those 8 luxury brands. And so though the standard and the luxury version were driving similar revenue per email delivered, it was the share of those stays that went to luxury brands that we were really excited about with this luxury version. So, again, it's, sort of early in the process. I think we've still got a ways to go on this. And as somebody who, came to this company and originally worked on the Ritz-Carlton Rewards email program, this kind of brings me back home to early in my career when we were doing an email program that was for the Ritz-Carlton Rewards, and that was a very sort of bespoke, luxury-specific email program. Well, that's really what we've built here for the 8 brands within our portfolio that we really want to highlight as sort of unique and special in this way. And so, the general outcome so far has been really good, and also I think we're getting really great feedback from our guests and also from our luxury brand leaders who are really pleased with the way we're able to express their brand in email. So that's the story about our luxury journey at Marriott International. Again, my name is Marc Sheinkin. I lead member and guest communications for Marriott, and it's been a real pleasure to speak to you today about what we're doing in this space. And I hope to be at the event in person in future years. So thanks again for taking the time to watch.